I wished I had a half hour to talk about the worst thing that the occult world ever planned out and carried out. It's called rock music. And if you want to believe they're garbage, that it's all right, and you want to forget things like Kiss saying that their real name is Kings in Satanic Service, and that rock music is actually satanic spells being cast and being planned by the Satanist Church, and that's a direct quote, then you go right on ahead. Right now, one of the Manson family girls is in trial, and she said the number one thing that the occult world used to brainwash them was Beatle music and rock music.
The main reason that young people go into witchcraft today is through the music. As I've told people, rock music didn't come out with Elvis Presley. It's thousands of years old. If you take it away, witches can't do witchcraft. They can't function without the music. It's a third of their power. You think about it.
Now, I know from being in the occult world the power in music. And I'm saying all this because I was the leader of Zodiac. I was going to get on this, and I'm still taking care of yours at the same time, which is the conglomerate that owns almost all of the rock booking agencies and production of concerts in the United States. Almost 95% of the groups that you hear in concert belong to contract to Zodiac Productions. Most of the friends that I have that are still in the world are friends that I met in the rock industry of people whose albums you buy today, okay? The Illuminati doesn't produce rock music to entertain you. They don't produce rock music to make money. They don't need that money. They own everything anyway. They do it to put demonic influence in your life. The music is a spell, and every witch knows it. All I can tell you is that demons follow this.
I was the manager of Zodiac Productions, which Zodiac Productions, name's been changed since then. I'm not even sure what to call it now, but it's the largest music conglomerate in the world. It owns RCA Records, Columbia Records, Motown Records, owns almost all the concert booking agencies in the United States. But I was the managing president of Zodiac Productions. It was one of my jobs as being one of these 13 people. Thus, I got to know many other people who produce music and sing the music and play the music that you play. Recently, one of the top people in rock music from the group, I can't think of the name of the group now, it's one of the top rock groups still in existence, that's been around a long time, was just saved. And he told how when they'd play in their concerts, they would control, through witchcraft spells in their mind, the people to do different things in the audience. And they'd work the audience up not with their music, but with their mind and their music combination. Now, one of the closest friends that I got during that time that I obtained was a man named David Crosby. Crosby still Nash and Young. And I saw David the day before Christmas last year, talked with him. I got him away from this witch that he had with him. He told her to go shopping. We were in West Hollywood, and I was witnessing around some people I knew. We went off in the store, and we started talking. I said, David, I'd like to ask you a couple questions. I said, I already know the answers, but I've been gone for 5 years. I'd like to know if certain things are still the way they were when I left. I said, now I'll explain some of this when I'm done, but you're not going to understand it all unless you know something about music. I said, did they still take the master to the temple room? Dave said, yeah. I said, did they still have the coven conjure demons into the master? He said, of course. I said, now I got to know something. What's the main reason for rock music? He said, come on, Lance, you know what the reason is. I said, please, David, I don't want to guess. Tell me what the main reason is. He said, the same as when you were in, so that we can play spells on people that we couldn't cast spells upon. I'll explain what that means in a minute. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now because that we couldn't cast spells upon. I'll explain what that means in a minute. I said, okay, one last thing. I've been hearing that you must be an initiated witch now to get a record contract. He said, that's right. He said, many of us that weren't total witches have to be witches now in order to produce music. Thank you. The master is a tape about as big as the top of this podium that looks like an overgrown 8-track that the album is cut on and is placed in a machine that produces and presses the records and the 8-tracks and cassettes that you buy. After it's been recorded, it's taken in on the full moon. It's taken in that is in every one of the major music companies behind locked doors up in the executive offices. And it's placed on an altar sitting in the north of the room and a pentagram engraved in the floor. And 13 hand-chosen witches and wizards and a coven come in and conjure a principality or a power up, usually Regia or something like that, and order him to tell the demons under him to follow every record and every tape coming off of that master. Now listen to me. This is why rock music's addicting. Have you ever seen kids that got rid of their music? They go around like this. They can't wait to find a rock station somewhere and they sneak off just like getting a cigarette or a fix because it's addicting. That's why they can't give it up. The rest of the conversation was this. You can't cast a spell on a Christian, but you can get a Christian to cast a spell on themselves. If you give the permission for the spell to work, being a Christian won't block it. And rock music is not just a song. It is supernatural music that which is carefully designed by their spirit guides or familiar spirits in the form of spells. And Elton John has said he's never written a song or sung a song that wasn't in which language. And I want to show you something. How many remember and have heard at least several times a song called Hotel California? Somebody tell me what it meant. Well, that's more of a guess. See, most people can't tell you. That's why when people do drugs and they listen to songs in which language, they get some of the meaning. But most of the time, they can't tell you. Stop and think how many songs are out there that you really like, and you don't have any idea what the person was talking about. Beatles sung Helter Skelter in which language nobody knew what it meant. Manson did because he belonged to the process. Helter Skelter is a several thousand-year-old word. You listen to them, your parents let you listen to them, your parents let you listen to them, and they have no idea. Kids openly bragged how they were gaining control of people through their music because the people played their music. They told how they didn't form their own group. Their church, because they were ordained ministers of the Satanist church, placed them together. And that's how most of the music is done.
You see group stuff on the television and you hear them on the radio and in concert and stuff, and you don't see the behind the scenes. Now here's one fact. Zodiac Productions, the leading Texas publication. It's changed its name now, but Zodiac Productions when I was with it. I was supposedly the owner of it. The co-owned it. And it was the leading source of concerts in Texas. Its office was in San Antonio. Because I was supposedly the owner, I met most of the groups in existence then. There are a few that have come out since then, but it's still the same type of thing. Almost all of them believe openly in the occult in one way or the other. Most are into Satanism.
In rock music, you must be an initiated witch, a coven member. That means you're a minister, okay? To be anybody in the last 2 years that's come on television must be an initiated witch. You've always had to do something. You're not on television or in the movies because you're good. You're there because you paid the price, whatever the producer wanted from you. Now, it's witchcraft.
Rolling Stones. Mick Jagger has told openly, over and over on television, I don't know where our Christian young people were when it was going on, that when he was in jail before the Stones was ever formed, he sold his soul to the devil. That's impossible, but he did it anyway. He sold his soul to the devil to become the leading rock group in the nation, plus get out of prison. He is the leading rock group in the nation, in the world. He has wrote songs praising the devil. And I know the devil gave it to him because the devil always thinks on himself. And in one song that Jagger wrote, he said, it's not that I fool you who I am. Everybody knows who the devil is. It's the nature of my game that's confusing you. And this is the way it is with Satan.
Always happens, something very funny happens when we start that number.
Jagger over and over, and that goes with rock music too. Don't try to rationalize it good or bad. It's bad. I want to give you an incident that will kind of sum it up. I did meet most of them. Most of them were in the occult, but most of them were on drugs. Now, rock musicians get their music while on drugs or from spirit guides, which are demons. That's what your young people are buying and paying for. Now, I'll give you something supernatural you can file away if you don't want to receive it or take it home and get in the Word and see if it's possible. When witches write a book, they cast a spell over the book so it'll sell. And they order a demon to go into every copy that comes off the press. So when you own a book on witchcraft, you have a demon residing in your home, free of charge. The musicians who do the music that are in witchcraft do the same things to their record albums. The same thing. So when you see that friendly little album spinning on your thing, ask yourself, was the musician a witch? Did he cast a spell over the album that the devil would have attacked in my home because I owned the records? There's more to it than records and books.
And people don't really realize the true significance of this music and really who is the one who's not only promoted this, but even these musicians, who's using them and speaking through them.
You have underlying influences then in this rock music.
Exactly. What we have is, and people have proven, from the 50s to the 90s, going back to Elvis in the 60s, the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones in the 70s with Led Zeppelin in the 80s, and Michael Jackson, now Madonna, all these people, if you really look, and maybe we have a separate video just on this, they all say in their own words that they're possessed by demons, spirits, they get their music by spirits, and so forth. And we have many other albums that are openly satanic. These are rock musicians. This is Prince's album, as you see on one side. Now you turn it upside down, you get 666, and then the word's evil at the bottom. And that's Police's album, you get 666 when you reverse it. So it's pretty open.
Alice Cooper stated that he received his name Alice from a spirit he contacted at a seance. Alice Cooper has admitted the influences that the spirit has wielded upon him during performances. He has stated that the spirit, quote, partly takes over his actions and singing on stage.
That's just the way we are.
AC/DC also sings about selling their souls to Satan for rock and roll fame. AC/DC guitarist Angus Young has also admitted to being possessed. He points out that the spirit manifests while he's performing on stage. He says, quote, by the time we're halfway through the first number, someone else is steering me. Someone else is steering me. I'm just along for the ride. I become possessed when I get on stage. Judas Priest, who is named after the apostate apostle Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus Christ, is fronted by Rob Halford, who promotes both homosexuality and Satanism. Richie Blackmore, who was the lead guitarist for two of the biggest bands in the 1970s, Deep Purple and Rainbow, has spoken candidly of his contact with the spirit world through seances. Richie Blackmore says of these seances, quote, you can't be very tired, otherwise you'll get possession. Blackmore speaks of a time that he brought another guitarist to one of these seances. He states the next moment that he was knocked out of his chair and was foaming at the mouth. He was unconscious. Van Halen's former frontman, David Lee Roth, didn't only sing about running with the devil. He also said in an interview about the assistance demonic beings give him when he goes on stage. David Lee Roth said, "I'm going to abandon my spirit to them," which is exactly what I attempt to do. You work yourself into that state, and you fall into the supplication of the demon gods. The rock band Queen sings about Beelzebub, a biblical name for Satan, setting a demon aside for them. Bon Jovi has admitted, "I'd kill my mother for rock and roll. I would sell my soul." In fact, Bon Jovi states, quote, "When I was a boy, the devil took me by the hand, took me from my home. I'm going down, down, down." AC/DC's song, Hell's Bells, was Satan's quest to get the masses to join him in the eternal fires of hell. Few people realize that Aleister Crowley is not only the father of modern Satanism, but the father of modern culture as well. Many rock stars have become famous through practicing Aleister Crowley Satanism. Ozzy Osbourne, seen here bearing an inverted cross, is only one of many rock stars who promoted Crowley Satanism. Ozzy Osbourne has stated that Crowley was, quote, "a phenomenon of his time." Crowley admitted, quote, "Beneath the standard of objectivity, I serve my great master Satan and the Council of Nine composed of Beelzebub, etc." Crowley declared, quote, "I swear to work my work abhorred, careless of all but one reward, the pleasure of the devil, our Lord." Crowley forsook his Christian upbringing and admitted, quote, "My first step must be to get into personal communication with the devil." Crowley admitted, quote, "Indeed, my falling away from grace was not occasioned by any intellectual qualms. I simply went over to Satan's side, and to this hour I cannot tell why." He went on to say, "I was opposed to an omnipotent God. I was not content to believe in a personal devil and serve him in the ordinary sense of the word." He said, "I wanted to get hold of him personally and become his chief of staff." Crowley purported Satan's deception by stating, quote, "Lucifer is my own guardian angel, and the devil Satan. This devil Satan is not the enemy of man, but he who made gods of our race, knowing good and evil. He bade know thyself and taught initiation. Quote, I bind my blood in Satan's hands. All this that lieth betwixt my hands to thee, the beast, and I control. I pledge me, body, mind, and soul." Satan is using countless rock musicians to initiate the masses into Crowley's teaching. We see a picture of Jesus Christ with his disciples at the Last Supper, the night before he would die for the sins of the world. Below this, we see a picture of Jim Morrison and the other doors hovering around the bust of Aleister Crowley. Apparently, they are conveying the idea that just as Jesus Christ has his disciples, Aleister Crowley has his own. No one should be surprised to find out that Satanist Marilyn Manson is a follower as conformed to the teachings of Aleister Crowley as well. In Marilyn Manson's book, Under the Rules, he quotes Satanist Aleister Crowley, who taught, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Aleister Crowley instructed his followers like Manson to sacrifice babies to Satan. In fact, Marilyn Manson seems to have viewed the sacrificial killing of his own child as a pivotal point of depravity necessary for the success of his album Antichrist Superstar, which was released soon after the murder. Crowley's new age of Antichrist consisted of many points for implementation if it was to succeed. Crowley taught the need of the credo of the new eon, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." In the 1960s, this became "Do your own thing." As we have seen, this also incorporated the idea of the drug revolution, but Crowley did not stop there. He also called for a sexual revolution. Crowley also taught the need for the synthesis of Western occultism and Eastern mysticism. He taught that there was to be rebellion against all established authority, especially Christianity. He also taught the establishment of the New World Order under the Antichrist. A large part of Satan's plan through Crowley was to bring in a drug revolution and to open up the masses to the demonic spirit world. Crowley's former disciple and secretary, Israel Regardie, stated, quote, "Crowley became an expert at a dozen or so varieties of Hindu and Buddhist yoga. He experimented with more drugs more frequently than anybody in the West before the neurological revolution of the 1960s. In the Book of the Law, the satanic spirit that channeled through Aleister Crowley merely echoes the satanic strains from the Garden of Eden so many years ago. He states, quote, "I am the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory and stir the hearts of men with drunkenness to worship me, take wine and strange drugs." Crowley interpreted this in his book Diary of a Drug Fiend to mean, quote, "Things like heroin and alcohol may be and should be used for the purpose of worshiping, that is, entering into communion with the snake that giveth knowledge and delight and bright glory." Bands like 311 promote the use of drugs which open people up to the demonic spirit world, forbidden in scripture as pharmakia. The drug epidemic, which has destroyed so many lives, made inroads into millions of homes through the drug revolution of the 1960s. This was not by accident. This was the result of careful planning of Crowley's disciples and doctrines which were vigorously promoted by the most popular musicians of the 1960s. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of the most popular bands of the 1990s and into the new millennium, have also promoted homosexuality. On their album Blood Sugar, Sex Magic, they put a K at the end of Sex Magic, like Aleister Crowley. At the MTV Music Awards, the Red Hot Chili Peppers gave special thanks to their lord Satan. First of all, I'd like to thank Satan. Satan. Part of homosexuality, Crowley began by implementing many of his homosexual sex magic rituals into a secret order called the OTO. The musical group White Stains named themselves after erotic homosexual poetry written by Aleister Crowley, which Crowley grossly entitled White Stains. Crowley made it no secret that he was interested in popularizing homosexual deviancy and even child molestation. Crowley declared, "Let me seduce the boys of England. I shall fight openly for that which no living Englishman dare defend, even in secret, sodomy." And in truth, there seems no better way to avoid a contamination of women. Sodomy is an aristocratic virtue which our middle class had better imitate if they wish to be smart. It was through the influence of the Beatles that millions of youth around the world were almost overnight turned away from Christ to the gurus of the East. Gurus like the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi were given a platform to pass out mantras like candy to the youth. Hippie youth began repeating these mantras, believing that they were in some way scientific, when in fact they were calling out on the names of Hindu gods and demons. Yoga is actually a word that means to yoke and speaks of yoking with pagan gods. God's word warns that these false gods are actually demonic beings, and Jesus Christ warned against the repetitious praying of the pagans.
Well, before the Beatles came around, I don't think Indian spirituality and things like that were an everyday part of Western culture. It was entirely the hippies, thanks to the Beatles, who decided to, go to India and, discover yoga and meditation. Now we all have yoga on every corner. There was never anything like that before they came along.
David Bowie has been called by Time magazine the most influential of all rock musicians. He was also the first artist to announce to the media that he was involved in homosexual practices. David Bowie says when he was in Japan, quote, "All those little boys are so cute. I just want to take them up into my room." But few realize that David Bowie's success was a result of his Satanism. Bowie admitted, "My overriding interest was in Kabbalah and Crowleyism, that whole dark, rather fearsome netherworld of the wrong side of the brain." Bowie declared, quote, "Rock music has always been the devil's music. You can't convince me that it isn't." Bowie seems to believe that rock music is Satan's vehicle to usher in Crowley's dark satanic age. Bowie declared, quote, "I feel that we're only heralding something even darker than ourselves." He said, quote, "I believe that rock and roll is dangerous. It could well bring about a very evil feeling in the West. That's where I see it heading, bringing about the dark era." Bowie has also been known to draw satanic pentagrams on his walls and make hexes. In his song Quicksand, David Bowie sings about being closer to the Golden Dawn, an occult organization that Crowley once belonged to, and then he goes on to sing about wearing Crowley's uniform.
"I'm closer to the Golden Dawn, immersed in Crowley's uniform of imagery."
Crowley was a deceiver who lied to his followers by promising them freedom and all the while bringing them into satanic slavery. While Crowley claimed that his followers would be free through the practice of do what thou wilt, they were actually brought into satanic bondage, the worst kind of slavery and non-freedom in existence.
Marilyn Manson have an influence on you personally?
Kind of, sort of.
What do you think about him when he tears up the Bible and kind of mocks God and his stuff?
I'm all for it. I'm a Satanist myself.
If anything, they teach you to open your mind.
I'm going to see what it has to say right here. Here, you got to be saved in order to go to heaven. We will no longer be oppressed by the fascism of Christianity.
Satanist Marilyn Manson has admitted, quote, "I don't know if anyone has really understood what we're trying to do, to lure people in. Once we've got them, we can give them our message."
None of those people outside realize how much power is in this one room. Let them hear it.
So uses rock stars that many fans actually worship them as gods.
They have totally changed my life. They are gods. I love corn.
They're gods. They're gods. They take my whole life, man. I'd like to meet them. Whoa! Whoa, yeah!
Manson said, "Hopefully I'll be remembered as the person who brought an end to Christianity."
My fellow Americans, we will no longer be oppressed by the fascism of Christianity. And we will no longer be oppressed by the fascism of beauty. Because I see you all sitting out there trying your hardest not to be ugly, trying your hardest not to fit in, trying your hardest to earn your way into heaven. But let me ask you, if you want to be in a place that's filled with a bunch of...
Nowhere is the occult world more powerfully realized in contemporary music than in the confluence of DJs, hypnotic rhythms, strobing lights, covert all-night parties, drug usage, and new age ideologies that define much of the rave subculture.
Your consciousness is expanded because of the supernatural thing that happened to you.
DJs are the high priests of the rave ceremony, responding to the mood of the crowd, with their mixing desks symbolizing the altar, the only direction in which the ravers consistently face. Dancing at raves may be construed as the method by which ravers worship the god of altered consciousness.
You've seen him a million times, the dancing deity in the ring of fire, the image of the Hindu god Shiva. In searching for my personal connection to best explain these roots of trance dancing from ancient India, I felt I needed to go deeper than books. I felt the need to invoke Shiva. So last night, as I prepared to go to a party at the Dimension 7 warehouse in San Francisco, I considered my intention for the evening. I wanted to become a sacred temple dancer. I knew I was on target when I arrived, and immediately was greeted by a large bronze statue of Shiva, dominating the altar in front of the DJ. Shiva had indeed been invoked. The magic had been spun, and the time had come for me to experience my devotional dance. The techno beat morphed in my head, the mesmerizing drone of devotional songs being repeated over and over again. Ecstatically allowing the trance to overtake me, I felt my body gyrate in unfamiliar ways that seemed as old as Shiva himself. I was able to leave my body and observe myself in this new, old incarnation. Shiva is the god of sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Now, one of the biggest things about him was he believed that he was possessed by some spirit, and I got to believe it myself, and that's what we had to deal with all the time. And he was very humble about discussing it with people because he didn't want people to feel like he was being pretentious and so on. But he really believed it, and he was wrestling with it constantly.
Один из величайших гениев рока Джимми Хендрикс заявил в 1969 году журналу Life: «С помощью музыки мне удается лучше убеждать людей. Ты гипнотизируешь людей, не сводя их до примитивного уровня. И там, находя их самое слабое место, ты можешь вбить им в голову все, что угодно». Мы плоды творения Божьего. И главная цель нашего существования — познать и почувствовать Бога. В Евангелии от Иоанна Иисус произнес: «А жизнь вечная в том, чтобы знали Тебя, единого истинного Бога, и кого Ты послал, Иисуса Христа». Продолжая уже цитированный нами ранее отрывок, поклоняющиеся Ему должны поклоняться в духе и истине. Поклонение, о котором идет речь, это не сухие религиозные процедуры, а естественный позыв познать и почувствовать Бога. Человек пал во грехе и был отделен от Бога. Сегодня как никогда актуально пророчество. Миллионы молодых людей, например, с удовольствием носят крест, либо на цепочке вокруг шеи, либо на серьге в ухе, предаваясь при этом грехам. Весь рок насквозь пронизан подобными осквернениями. Создается впечатление, что чем более артист извращен, тем с большей силой и страстью он начинает использовать образ креста. А Иисус ведь говорил: «Если любите меня, то будете делать то, что я заповедую вам». В последние времена отступят некоторые от веры, внимая духом обольстителям и учением бесовским, в лицемерии лжецов с прожженной совестью. Писание дает нам глубочайший анализ этой страсти к осмеянию Христа. Анализ, который может применяться как своеобразный критерий оценки духовного состояния личности. Слово о кресте для погибающих есть безумие. Иными словами, осмеяние Христа есть первый признак духовной гибели человека. И сатана, бог смерти, толкает их на это богохульство, непрестанно стремится извратить представление человека о Боге и правде. Библия предостерегает против этого. Для спасаемых же слово о кресте есть сила Божия.